my name is Heleniq A, and I'm very excited that you decided to join me on this very first video, which is going to be covering the key areas that we need to master as single women in order to attract and sustain everlasting love and outstanding partnership. Now, all this information that I'll be presenting in these videos is a compilation of various sources, very specifically the Art of Love series and the Soulmate series by Ariel Ford and Claire Zammit. There is a distillation of information in these next few videos about 5 key areas that you need to master or really accomplish well so that you can actually attract love and partnership on the level that you are hoping to attract it on, because these videos are dedicated towards higher love and really deepening the kind of love and intimacy that you are entitled to in this life that you live. So this first area really is about being able to step first into the area of possibility in your life and learning how to be coming from a context of anything is possible, and that you really are allowed, deserving, and fully entitled to have deep and lasting love in your life. Now, this might be difficult as a starting point for some of us, and so it's something you want to spend some time with. And if you do need to work with a professional, it's a good idea to get someone to really help hold this value for you in your life if you yourself are not aligned with it yet. It is foundational. It's very important for you to believe that it's possible and that you are absolutely entitled to have a valuable connection in your life. This is important bedrock for the very first key area, because the key area that you want to begin to manifest is real clarity. Are you at all clear about what it is that you look for in a life partner? You might have a long list. You might have written many lists. You might have scratched out things in your list. You might have thrown lists away. You might have all kinds of frustration and anger about the list not coming true. I know I have, on my journey, found many different obstacles on the way about trying to understand what are the main areas, what are my main priorities about what I'm looking for in a partner. So I can really relate with you if you are in that place where you're a bit frustrated about looking at what is very important for you. So let's see if we can take a review on this subject if you are one of those people. And if you're not and you're starting this process, you want to look at the 3 very important values that you have, that you feel are really key points that your partner needs to have. If you do have many more than that, try and collect them up into groups, subgroups, so that you can find out what are the 3 most important key areas. Once you've found out what those are, really check again with yourself if they represent your value system. So you want to be looking at the way you want to be treated. You want to be looking at the kinds of areas of life that you respect and that you admire and that you think are very important. And you want to be looking as well at the attitudes and the perspectives you have about important issues in the world. You want to be looking at that area as well. And then look at past relationships. Look at what has really worked for you in past relationships. What did you find very meaningful? And when you are looking into those past relationships, consider whether those qualities that the relationship offered you were transitory, whether they really helped you just for a period of time. Maybe it was an area that you were lacking in, and then you had that kind of attention or that kind of affection, or whether it's something that you need throughout your life, whether this is a value that you have and you would like to unfold with it in the rest of your life. This will also help give you an idea of what these 3 core values are. The myth that we all sit with is that we'll just know if we meet someone and they're right for us. There's a lot of people that say to you that when you look into someone's eyes, you'll just know that this is the person you're meant to be with. And according to many people working in this area right now, this is considered to be a bit of a fallacy, that in fact you don't always know, and you do need to check it out. In fact, there's some very interesting research that's been done on women who have married their husbands, and they've investigated how many dates did they need to go on before they decided that this man was a candidate for marriage, or that he was going to potentially be the one. And it's interesting to notice that these women on an average had about 5 dates before they started to consider marriage and full-term commitment. So you might be very, very likely one of those women that you need a while in order to really assess whether this man is faring on your core 3 values that you're looking for. And you want to be looking for a few things. Obviously, consistency is very important. The way he treats you is very important. You want to be looking at what he believes in, what he is faithful to. You want to be looking a little at his track record. And sometimes this is more important than other times because you might have learned a lot of things from a bad track record, but again, you want to see that some of it's been implemented. If he has had some deeper learning about what he could do better in relationships, you want to see that he's practiced a little bit of that, and that you can actually then invest in what you see as reliable in this person's relationship skills, right? And when you're doing this kind of discovery, it's important to be negotiable to a point, but this is why you need to also begin to consider what your true deal breakers are, because there might be areas of life that for you are not negotiable. And this is very important to know. I know for me, any kind of substance abuse is really not a negotiable, it's a deal breaker. So you might find something like this on your list. In the course of listening to many different experts in this field, I do recall one lady saying, even, which I really liked, and I've adopted it myself, that it's important for her to attract, as I believe it is now for me, a man who is psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, and physically healthy. So you can see that if one of those areas is not intact, then it might be a bit of a deal breaker, because it could cause a chain reaction into many other areas of life. So this is an example of a deal breaker, for example, somebody who is abusing substances. Perhaps a deal breaker for you could be a man with young children still living with him. A deal breaker could be a divorced man who hasn't had his time out playing the field yet. Another deal breaker could be somebody who is in another country but doesn't have financial stability. So that way it can't facilitate a very fluid flowing relationship between the two of you. So these are things you need to think about, and they will come from dating different people, and they will also come from past relationships, but you do need to give that some thought. Another thing you need to think about is the fact that there really are many myths around chemistry and around attraction. And some of these that I'm going to share with you might be very helpful guiding posts to begin to consider more critically as you discover different types of partnership. Now, many psychologists, in fact, have talked about what they call the imago, which is a very specific kind of construct that sits in our brains from very, very young as a kind of schema, a kind of image, a kind of archetype, if you will, of the primary caregiver, the person who gave us the most nurturing care and was around us the most often. And the image of that person gets kind of encoded into the brain. And this forms a kind of image, an imago, taken from the Greek word, which is like an imprinting image into the brain. And there are some theories that suggest that this is really what causes attraction in later life. There's something about the person that you're attracted to physically and sexually that is calling forth some of the qualities of what your imago was imprinted with. And there's a sexual charge often to this as a way of nature trying to call us back into relationship with this imprinting that we got in younger years, and helping us to resolve whatever we didn't resolve in our primary caregiving relationship. Now, there's all kinds of ways that you can go about doing this, but the point I want you to realize today is that somebody that you then have this attraction for, that you're sexually charged about, doesn't necessarily mean that this person is in fact the healthiest choice for you. It could be somebody that actually kicks in or triggers your primal instincts, but doesn't necessarily bring you a kind of compatibility and similar value system, which are the things that you're going to be looking for a little bit more in terms of mastering in the first key. So the clarity about what you're really looking for is important, and in order to get it, you're looking at your value system, and you're looking at the 3 very important values that you have. In order to understand those, you're looking into how you get treated by a man, you're looking at what's important to him, you're looking at what's important to you, how they match up, things that you absolutely are not negotiable about, your deal breakers, 3 of those, you want to be looking for those, putting those down as very specific areas to be selecting for. And you want to be considering that chemistry is not the most important quality in the relationship. In fact, it's 1 of 5. Communication is another one. You need to be able to have a certain amount of skill to communicate what your needs are. There's many people online that are teaching us how to communicate more effectively, how to communicate without violence, how to ask for what you truly want as a woman asking a man, from Alison Armstrong. And so communication is an area you need to develop into. And you need to be looking at the kind of relationship that has a certain ease and flow in the communication to start off with. The other important area to be assessing is the compatibility between you. And this is where your value system comes in. So your values and your deal breakers are really helping you find this kind of compatibility and assess it well when you are selecting a mate. The magical connection is very important as well, that you feel a connection with this person. Don't read too much into magical, but something slightly unique or something meaningful to begin with is a very good start. And an ease and a flow is very important. And then the chemistry, of course, some chemistry is very important, but let it not be the only important thing or the guiding important thing. And the communication, as we said, compatibility. And then there's also this kind of shared vision for the future, as Ariel Ford calls it. And I also like to call it a willingness to grow together. So this is slightly different to a vision for the future. But if you can see that you want similar things, like a certain kind of expectation for a family in one partner but not in both, is not an ideal level of compatibility, and it's also not a shared vision for the future. So you can see that trying to understand what this person's idea of growing old together looks like, or what this person's ideal anniversary date is, are giving you some indication of how they think about the future, what's important to them, how they themselves feel they can create the future, that they're not just passively waiting for you to create it, or they're not just expecting things to unfold automatically. They do have a kind of volition around that. So there's a certain willingness to work in relationship and a certain willingness to grow. So when you're looking at the way this person shapes their future, look at their willingness to also work on themselves. Another thing that I think you can look into in terms of getting really clear is to have a real sense of your faith in relationships and to know where to go and find it. And by that I mean a kind of personal ritual, or maybe it's a process that you go through, or maybe it's a meditation that you have, or maybe you write something about this when you are going through one of your darker moments and you come out of them. You actually write down some kind of declaration about your clarity for love, your clarity of what it is that you want. An affirmation, maybe a poem, maybe an art piece, maybe something in your garden, maybe a shrine, maybe something on your altar, something symbolic that can really commemorate and anchor down the mastery of this first important key to manifesting everlasting love. So you want to be creating something really significant as your first key accomplishment that will let you know that you are actually serious about creating love in your life and that you're quite clear about what you want. And when you lose hope and when you have a disappointment on the dating process, this significant gesture or some symbolic ritual that you have created in the beginning can actually help remind you of this clear intention that you once had, and maybe even kickstart it again for you. So this is the first key area you want to be mastering. And if you have any comments or questions about it, you can always email me at druminspire@gmail.com, and that email address will come straight to me, and I will be answering it in a few days' time. So you can ask me a question. If you want to go to my LinkedIn profile, you can also go to Ask Helen A, and there I will be able to answer your question either anonymously if you inbox me through LinkedIn and you prefer not to have your name with it, or if you like, you can actually post it on that group forum, and then I will answer it as a group forum question next to your name and next to your post. Thank you so much for watching, and I'd love to hear any comments you have about this video, and of course I'm always here to answer any of your questions. Thank you very much. Bye bye.